revenue options.
Thank you, Mayor Reynosa. John Davis, Town Manager. I have a couple members of our team here tonight. They'll introduce themselves as we get going. So yes, as you said, item 14.1 is to receive the summary of public feedback gathered through community meetings held from December through March 2026 regarding the town's general fund revenue challenges and potential solutions, and provide direction to staff on whether to prepare a 1% transaction and use tax measure for potential placement on the November 2026 ballot. And so this is really the second check-in we've had with you along the way. We're back now to report out some of the information that we found, and then we're looking for further direction from council tonight to potentially continue our research, and in the future, the item may be at council's discretion be placed on the future ballot. So with that, we'll move to our next slide. So a quick background, we've seen many presentations about the issues that the town are facing, navigating this structural fund deficit, stagnant general fund revenue growth, rising public safety costs, aging infrastructure, and the escalating construction costs, insurance market instability, rising premiums, inflation increases in consultant supplies and materials, and then the unfunded state mandates that we are just talked about a little bit of eroding local control. So on November 19th, as I mentioned, our last stop, the town council directed staff to engage the community to better understand residents' priorities and assess community sentiment regarding a possible revenue measure. Just looking back quickly at the budget, this chart's broken into year one and year two of the budget, but really in the totals, it just shows again that the original shortfall prior to the 25-27 budget being adopted was about 19 million. Staff worked with council to defer about $5 million in maintenance projects and cut from the budget $6 million. The town is then needed to budget $8 million in reserves to balance the budget. And we still are starting to feel that a 1% sales tax would generate approximately 5.5 million annually, which would help us address the ongoing structural deficit and protect those reserves. With that, I would like to introduce Senior Management Analyst Lauren Burgess from my department. She's going to take you through some of the information that we gathered.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. As we move into the community engagement section, I wanted to briefly frame what this outreach represents. Community input isn't a scientific poll, but it is a window into how people are thinking, what they're concerned about, and what they value. And in that sense, it's been incredibly helpful. Over the past few months, we've had thoughtful conversations with residents across the spectrum, people who support a revenue measure, people who oppose it, and many who are still working through the issues with us. Our goal tonight is simply to bring those perspectives forward clearly and honestly so the council can see the themes and priorities that consistently emerged. Since December, staff have conducted a comprehensive and consistent engagement effort across the community. At every meeting, we presented the same core information about the town's fiscal challenges and the revenue tools available. This ensured transparency and allowed residents to engage from a shared baseline of facts. We met with commissions, civic groups, senior centers, school groups, and held a bilingual town hall to make the process as accessible and as inclusive as possible. On this slide, you can see that in total, we held 17 community meetings across varied venues, in addition to several related council presentations. And these weren't just presentations, they were conversations. Residents asked thoughtful questions about service levels, long-term sustainability, and what happens if no new revenue is secured. Outreach will continue through April and May, so residents have additional opportunities to learn and provide input. And in community conversations, residents engaged deeply with the material and showed a strong desire to understand the town's financial outlook. They wanted clarity on what services are at risk, how staffing levels might be affected, and what the community would experience if the structural deficit is not addressed. This dialogue helped shape the themes you'll see in the next slides. the community theme overall is that core services are valued. Our Windsor residents really love our town. Police services, parks, town green events, and the overall responsiveness of town operations were repeatedly cited as strengths. This strong baseline of satisfaction means residents are not asking for major changes, but they do want assurances that current service levels can be sustained over time. Our top community priorities. Road conditions were the most frequently mentioned issue. Residents described deteriorating pavement and emphasized the need for consistent investment in basic public infrastructure. Public safety, also a major priority. Many expressed concern about reduced sworn staffing and asked detailed questions about the sheriff's contract, response times, and long-term staffing needs. Across all groups, residents linked adequate police staffing and well-maintained roads directly to Windsor's quality of life. You know, and another consistent theme was accountability. If a revenue measure does move forward, residents want strong oversight, they want transparency, and they want clear safeguards. We also conducted an anonymous feedback avenue to collect feedback from our various residents, and we did this in order to gather the input. And to gather this input, we used simple, consistent feedback form accessible through the town's website. Everyone received the same questions, the same information, and the same opportunity to respond. The forms were anonymous, which encouraged candid comments. And staff reviewed every submission to identify the themes that appeared across multiple meetings and groups. Respondents overwhelmingly identified public safety and road maintenance as the most essential services. The community is nearly evenly split between those who support or somewhat support a tax measure and those who do not, with a smaller portion that's unsure still. Supporters emphasized the need to maintain essential services and noted that other Sonoma County cities have had similar measures. Opponents raised concerns about how a sales tax increase could affect households with tighter budgets. The pace of development was a concern that's happening in the town, and the strong desire to see additional internal cost-saving measures before pursuing new revenue. Across both meetings and the anonymous feedback, accountability and transparency were recurring expectations.
Great. Thank you, Lauren. Tim Ricard, Economic Development Manager, council members, mayor and council members. As noted in previous presentations to the council and throughout our public outreach, staff has evaluated all of the major revenue options that are typically used for cities in order to raise additional funds. We looked at the estimated annual revenue that we'd receive from a particular revenue measure, the vote required, and its applicability to our budget deficit, which is specific to the general fund. So I wanted to quickly walk through these key options and analysis one last time. So transit occupancy tax, as you know, applies to overnight stays in hotels, short-term rentals, and motels. The great thing about that is visitors pay it, not residents. That's a very attractive feature. But Windsor's hospitality base is limited. We currently generate about $2.7 million annually from TOT, and each additional 1% would equal roughly $225,000. However, Windsor already has a combined lodging rate of 14% when you include the county's business improvement assessment. So we have limited competitive room to grow that TOT revenue. Municipal bonds or property tax or parcel taxes. These taxes are restricted to capital projects and require a 2/3 majority vote. A bond can fund a new building or infrastructure project, but it cannot pay for the ongoing salaries of police officers, park maintenance, or the day-to-day operations. Given that our deficit is fundamentally an operational general plan one or general fund one, these are not viable tools for addressing the structural gap. Next, utility users tax. Utility users tax is a percentage applied to utility bills. Electricity, gas, telecom are most common, sometimes water, sewer, or solid waste. We estimate that it generate $1 to $2.5 million annually, depending on how it is structured. Historically, TOTs have been popular, or UUTs have been popular when applied to cable television. It's viewed as a luxury purchase and not a necessary item However, as cable television usage has gone down dramatically and people have been cutting the cord, UUTs have really fallen out of favor in California, with the remaining options really being to tax water, gas, electricity, those things that people need to live on a day-to-day basis. For that reason and lack of revenue, we did not feel that a UUT was a strong candidate. That is why the conversation, that's why the conversation amongst the public and among staff has really focused on two tools, the business license tax and the sales tax. As noted at our March 14th council presentation, there's an important legal distinction that I want to make clear. What Windsor has today is a business license fee. It's a flat charge of $71 to open a new business and a $26 annual renewal fee. By law, that fee can only recover the administrative cost of running the program. It cannot create revenue to be used for other programs. So yes, Walmart pays the same $26 annual renewal fee as any other business because it takes the same amount of resources to process their renewal as it does for any other business. While a business license tax is a fundamentally different instrument, it's voter approved, generates unrestricted general fund revenue, and can be structured as a tiered gross receipts model that scales with business size. We did some analysis and modeled potential Windsor's business license tax using Santa Rosa's Measure EE structure, which was the only voter adopted business license tax in Sonoma County. We used information from data axles and classified businesses by NAICS code in order to come up with what we feel was an accurate planning estimate of if we had a similar tax in Windsor. That estimate was $1.3 million annually. Although that is a real and meaningful contribution, it's only about 1/4 of what we need to close the structural deficit. The tax burden also falls primarily on Windsor's local businesses rather than being shared amongst visitors and commuters who use those services. Unlike a sales tax, the business license tax also requires the town to administer annual revenue filings, audit cycles, and appeals. Although these are most likely done by a third-party vendor, such as HDL, they typically take about 5 to 6% of the tax revenue in order to do that work. For these reasons, staff does not believe a business license tax is the right tool for this situation. That leaves us with the sales tax. A 1% transactions and use tax is projected by HDL to generate approximately $5.5 million annually, enough to close the structural deficit, protect reserves, and begin addressing our deferred maintenance backlog. It is collected and administered by the state's Department of Tax and Fee Administration, so there is no local audit burden or administrative overhead. The cost is shared broadly, paid not just by Windsor residents, but by visitors, commuters, and online shoppers who buy goods here. Critically, it does not apply to groceries, diapers, baby formula, prescription medications, feminine hygiene products, medical devices, or utilities. California already exempts all of these items from sales tax, and any additional local add-on sales tax would not be collected on these items. And as been noted in the presentation, Windsor is the only city that does not currently have a local sales tax. Our residents are already paying higher rates when they shop in neighboring cities, funding those community services instead of their own. A local measure would let Windsor keep those dollars here. Next slide. Just as we evaluated different revenue options, staff also evaluated different sales tax amounts. 3 scenarios were considered: a 1/2 cent, a 3/4 cent, and a full 1 cent. At a 1/2 cent, the town would generate roughly $2.75 million per year. That doesn't cover the current structural gap, or does it begin to restore services that have already been cut. It doesn't begin to address the roughly $5 million in deferred maintenance that we've accumulated. We would essentially be treading water, spending a significant political capital and ballot dollars for a measure that still leaves the town in a deficit. At 3/4 cent, we get roughly $4.1 million annually, which is quite a bit better, but still not enough. It does not close our gap or give us the runway to restore what has been cut or address deferred maintenance. At 1%, we generate roughly $5.5 million annually. That is enough to close the structural deficit, fund deferred maintenance over time, and stop the slow erosion of services that Windsor residents have told us that they value. This isn't about asking for more than we need. It's about asking once, asking for the right amount, and actually solving the problem.
Thank you, Tim. So just to summarize our key takeaways, as Lauren mentioned a little bit, residents value town services and they want them protected. Public safety, road maintenance, parks and events were all key contributors to quality of life here. Residents want some assurances that those service levels can be sustained. We did have a broad curiosity toward the revenue measure. As mentioned, we had great questions, great interactions, and great discussions during our educational sessions with people. People would like to know what it would fund and how it would affect their households, all the questions that we've heard along the way. And lastly, the local sales tax and budget adjustments address the shortfall. If we did a 1%, it's the 5.5 million generated by the tax combined with the budget reductions that we're putting into place and the operational efficiencies that we're starting to move towards. And this would help close the shortfall while still allowing us to start to address some of the deferred maintenance. So moving to the next, our recommendations on our next steps. If the town council wishes to advance the 1% local transactions and use tax for voter consideration, staff would proceed with the following. In April and May, we'll continue our community outreach. We would come back in June with a draft ordinance, ballot language, the ballot question essentially. We do more impartial analysis and provide more public materials for council review. We'd also like to develop a fiscal accountability and oversight policy with the council to strengthen local control. Should we move past that and get the ballot language solidified, we would then take all your input, bring it back in July for a council resolution to place it on the ballot. And that would be in November, and the voter's decision could be rendered at that time. I did want to remind everybody that we have a plethora of information on the website. We have a bunch of FAQs, previous presentations. We're always willing to talk to members of the community. As we've been saying along the way, come to your barbecue or your club meeting, your sports team, and we'd love to talk to people more about this over the next couple months. I do want to thank everyone on the team that has worked on this. We have Tim, Lauren, myself, Olivia Lehman, Parks and Recreation Director, Nick Walker, Administrative Services Director. Again, this is not part of their regular duties. This is over and above all their other daily duties that they're performing. And so it has taken some time outside the normal operations, and they put in the time to bring the council the information that we hope will help you make a decision. With that, we can try to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just start. So we have until June to really narrow this down and decide what we're doing. I mean, I know the recommendation today is 1%, but will we have a chance in the next 2 months to change that if we want to?
Council could certainly change that. We would like council, should you feel comfortable tonight, to narrow our lens now. Given the information that we provided and given the feedback that we received, we'd like to move forward in a more narrow scope of education, talking about the 1%, how that can help the town continue to provide all of the amenities and assets that we do for the community, and talk about it coming from a tax measure.
Okay.
But we will be drafting ballot language, and that language will come back to the council in June in a draft form.
Okay. Another question that just hit me right now. So these numbers, when you talk about the 1% would bring so many millions, and you say the 0.5%, I didn't write it down. If you want to bring that slide back up, the 2.75 and 1%. So these 2.7 million, 4.1, 5.5, you're basing that on today's shoppers, what people are spending today, right? Is that?
Yes, this estimate was put together by HDL, who monitors our sales tax activity for us, just as they do for just about every city in California. And they put together this projected estimate for the next fiscal year.
Okay, so, and you've mentioned before that we have leakage. Can you just talk about that a little bit more? the public to hear that they're not shopping in Windsor?
You know, over 85% or around 85% of Windsor residents leave Windsor to go to work each day. And they do a lot of that while they're away. They do spend a lot of money at other stores, just whether that's buying gas, going out to lunch, et cetera. But we do not have some of the big box stores that I know are large sales tax generators. So we can actually look at it by industry type, where we have sales tax leakage, and we do provide a lot of sales tax leakage in Windsor. I think we still act in some ways a little bit like a bedroom community.
So my last question. So if we had a way to encourage more people to shop in Windsor or have a big box office store come to Windsor, then these numbers could ultimately be a lot higher.
Yes, I think that is very much another leg on the stool that is important.
If I could, through the mayor, I mean, that you're exactly right, Mayor Reynosa. As we've talked about before, this is a multi-pronged approach. One of those prongs is to continue to work to increase other areas of revenue, which would be tax increment from another store. Tim continues to work on that, and staff looking for opportunities there on the different parcels throughout the community.
Thank you. Any other questions before I open it?
Do we have an estimate of the cost to put this on the initiative on the ballot? That would be in November?
Absolutely. The clerk and I were discussing this morning, and so we need to look at it in two buckets, so to speak. So we know that we will have 3 council member seats coming up. And so that will be on the ballot regardless of council decision about the tax measure. That could run up to about $50,000. It all is a little bit variable depending on how many other measures are on the ballot. And then when we talk about the tax measure itself, that could run up to $55,000 for that itself, depending again on how many other measures are on the ballot. So the clerk did say she's never seen it go as high as 55,000. So, you know, we would hope to not have to spend that amount.
Thank you. That question's come up. Thanks.
Any other questions before I open it up to the public? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and open it up for any comments. So any members of the public wishing to come up to the podium, and we'll have 3 minutes. And please note that we'll do our best to jot down your questions, and we'll get back to you in one way or another if you have certain questions that we can answer. If we can't answer them tonight, we'll definitely be in touch. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Reynosa and fellow council members. My name is Meredith Rennie, 191 Bouquet Circle. I've been a resident of Windsor since 1999 and a resident of Sonoma County since 1975. I am a current planning commissioner, a former Parks and Recreation commissioner, but I come to you today speaking and sharing my own thoughts as an active and engaged resident of Windsor. Some of you may or may not know my career is built around taxes. I am a CPA, and I'm active right in the middle of my 28th tax filing season, which is all about helping people pay less taxes, not more. I have attended several of the town public meetings offered on this topic. I've read the materials provided as well as done some research myself. I've heard about other options for the town to consider. We discussed tonight improving revenue streams, and I believe this analysis of those options should continue to be evaluated moving forward, just like I do for my own home. Boosting revenue, analyzing expenditures, and overall fiscal management should be an ongoing discussion and analysis that should never end. Of course, the session today intended for council members to gather additional testimony for or against this proposal. The council is not being asked to go on the ballot today, but I think we're gathering information to determine if there's enough community support to warrant the matter being on the ballots. I believe there is. A local sales tax, a critical tool, we all know, to fund essential community services and infrastructure. Revenue streams also provides for potential funding towards much asked for community amenities. It does risk have some downturn things as well, and I tried to evaluate those. I am in favor of an overall sales tax measure reaching the residents. But I think we also need to acknowledge that sales taxes are inherently regressive, meaning they take larger percentage from lower income earners or fixed income earners than from high income earners. I'm somewhat concerned about their participation in the community outreach in that demographic, as they tend to spend a greater share of their earnings on taxable necessities. I have less empathy for the sales tax on a luxury vehicle and more concern for the lower income or fixed income earners. I also read some stuff about creating a distorted land use perspective. Municipalities reliant on sales tax. They prioritize retail development over more beneficial developments, such as residential housing or green space, to boost revenue. I want to make sure that our future town planning and development stays on track towards our community goals, objectives, and our governing documents, and not get too focused on boosting revenues. There is a lot to consider, and my participation over the last several months in the community outreach, hearing from residents directly, following the social media content, there's a lot of interest for and opposed to additional taxes. But I believe there's enough to continue moving forward to get this on the ballot for the residents to decide, and that's the direction we should be in. Let's set the rate, set the time frame, let the people vote. Democracy is not a spectator sport.
Please wrap up by the.
We need the residents
I thought you
in the
were-
game. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Reynosa and Council. I'm Kelly Wong. I am a resident of Windsor since 2007, currently on the Parks and Rec Commission. I live at 9462 Victoria Lane. Want to thank the council for the thoughtful and the staff for the thoughtful work behind all of our budget situation. It's not taken lightly. There's been so many presentations and so much outreach talking to our community. I really appreciate it. I know our community does too. Thank you for the education and thank you for the time. I would like to support the initiative for the sales tax going on the ballot. I do think Windsor needs to continue being Windsor. We have so much of our money or so much shopping that happens in Santa Rosa, and we are paying for everybody else's communities and not our own. It would be nice to have that sales tax here funding our roads, our safety, our parks. Sorry, a little biased on that one. But having our town stay in it, the gem that it is. When we are funding Santa Rosa, they're getting our money. Here, it will not just be our residents, but it'll also be visitors. It'll be the tourists. It'll be people coming through. We've got our smart trains, so we have more people who will be here shopping. We're not asking for 10%. We're not asking for 11%. We're asking something to keep our county or our town sustainable. I do hope that we can continue to keep Windsor, Windsor, and we do need something other than the status quo. So please do consider this 1% for the ballot. I do think our town, our citizens should be able to vote on it and figure out what we need and be able to keep Windsor as the gem that it is. Thank you for your time.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, and members of the community. My name is Tai Shimizu, and for those who don't know me, I'm deeply invested in the future of the town of Windsor, and I'm here tonight to share my perspective on the structural deficit and the revenue options in front of us. At a high level, I think this conversation comes down to two core issues. First, how do we address the structural deficit? Second, how do we create sustainable revenue moving forward? That brings us to the options in front of us tonight. Do nothing, implement a business license tax, or increase the sales tax. If we choose to do nothing, the consequences are fairly clear. The town has already frozen police positions, implemented hiring freezes, and reduced departmental budgets by at least 10%. We've also deferred critical maintenance on roads, parks, and infrastructure, and scaled back community programs to serve youth, families, and seniors. The reality is that continued cuts and deferred maintenance don't just delay costs, they compound them. They impact public safety, road conditions, and overall quality of life. Over time, that decline makes Windsor less attractive, not only to residents, but also to visitors. Fewer visitors means less spending at local businesses, which directly affects our local economy. There's also a longer-term impact to consider as the town becomes less desirable to live in. Due to declining services, aging infrastructure, and reduced community investment, property values can stagnate or even decline. That affects homeowners, local wealth, and the town's overall economic stability. Research from organizations like the National Recreation and Park Association consistently shows that well-maintained public spaces are tied to stronger local economies and increased vegetation. So choosing to do nothing doesn't avoid costs, it shifts them into the future, often at a much higher financial community price. The second option is a business license tax. I think it's important to clarify something here. A business license fee and a business license tax are not the same. Fees are meant to cover administrative costs, and while it's reasonable to adjust them for inflation, they're not designed to generate meaningful revenue. As for the business license tax itself, the town estimates it would generate between 1 million to 1.8 million annually. While that sounds significant, it falls well short of addressing the deficit. On top of that, implementing and enforcing this tax would require additional administrative systems and likely new staffing or contractors. So we would still be facing ongoing cuts while placing additional burden on local businesses. That's not a balanced solution. This brings us to the sales tax. Currently, Windsor has the lowest sales tax in Sonoma County. Many of us already shop and dine in nearby cities like Santa Rosa, Petaluma, and Sebastopol, where higher sales tax rates are already in place. The proposed increase would bring Windsor more in line with surrounding communities rather than putting us at a greater disadvantage. The key point here is scale. A sales tax is estimated to generate around 5 million annually. That's a meaningful step towards closing the deficit. Importantly, it doesn't fall solely on residents. Sonoma County sees over 10 million visitors each year. Windsor, as part of that regional economy, benefits from capturing revenue from non-residents who shop and dine here. So when we step back and look at the big picture, doing the most good for the most people, the path becomes clear. Doing nothing leads to deeper cuts and long-term decline. A business license tax provides a limited benefit to added complications. The sales tax, while not perfect, is the most effective and sustainable option available. I've always believed that the right approach to budget challenges is balance. The reduce costs where we can, and we increase revenue where we must. The town has already made difficult cuts. Now we need to ensure we have the revenue to maintain essential services, protect public safety, and preserve the quality of life that makes Windsor a great place to live and do business. For those reasons, I believe a sales tax increase is a necessary and responsible step towards securing Windsor's future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I know some of you. I'm Teresa Hendricks, and I came here tonight to urge you to tell staff to go ahead and work towards putting the 1% sales tax increase measure on the ballot, hopefully until it's repealed or revoked by Windsor voters. We moved here, my husband and I retired here in 2012. We love it here. My parents moved here in 1993 from Santa Rosa. We've been coming here ever since. This is an ideal hometown. This is everybody's hometown. And I want our forever hometown for my husband and I to stay as nice as it was when we moved here. I don't want to see it decay. I don't want it to slide into decline as far as services go. The key to me is this has not been just a Windsor problem, declining revenues for cities around the country and around the state. It's an everywhere problem. And right now, we are the only city in Sonoma County that has not passed a penny or fraction of a penny sales tax increase. And if the voters approve a 1% sales tax for Windsor, 1 penny per dollar spent, we would join Sonoma, Petaluma, and Cotati in having a 10.25 cent sales tax, percent sales tax. I think it's clear that if all the cities are facing the same problems, all the cities have already come up with a solution to keep their services at the level their residents want them. I do think the sales tax is the most fair option. I don't think a utility user's tax is fair at all. It taxes things that people need to live on, that water, sewer. That's just not fair, especially to low-income residents. I don't think the business tax is fair. I don't think it's fair to expect just town businesses to pay for the services residents, tourists, and everyone needs. And I think that the sales tax is the most fair because it would be paid by tourists, by residents, by visitors from other towns. And it does not, most importantly, does not tax the things people need to have in order to live. No tax on groceries, no tax on diapers, baby food, no tax on women's period products, no tax on prescription medications, medication devices, the things people need in order to live. I can live with 17 cents more on my lunch bill at Casey's. It's not going to really hurt me or affect my shopping that much, but it will help Windsor, and I am more than happy to do that. And a lot of people, since I've been so vocal about it, they quietly come up to me or DM me and say, you know what, I agree with you. I support the sales tax.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anonymous Windsor resident. I have been, as Tim knows, to many of the meetings and discussions. This is not easy, and I want to mention why it's not easy. Even within my own household, we have serious agreements between 4 adults as to whether we as individuals would approve a sales tax increase. I'm not going to tell you where I stand on it right now, but I liked John Davis's opinion or entreaty to do a multi-pronged approach. And one thing that has not been brought up that I've heard is combining, it's an either or, a yes or no. And I don't think getting approval will be as difficult if we present a multi-pronged approach, meaning if possible on the same ballot measure, a business license tax along with its a graduated increase in sales tax or whatever other solutions. I don't think this has to be an either or. And my primary concern is what would happen to the town if some of my family members came up and said, no way, no how, no more tax, we can't be taxed any longer. Not just my family members, but the community. Then the really, really hard decisions come. I think if it's presented in a more considerate and full whole picture view, I think it'll have less resistance from those who naturally resist. That's my hope.
Good evening, Mayor, fellow City Council members. Donna Legge, Windsor resident. As I understand it, the generation of the revenue is on the shoulders of the businesses. What do they benefit from this? So there are a lot of different areas that the community spoke out to as to what the need is. But in a way, I see an opportunity to invest in the source of the revenue. So if we take a part of that 5.5 and invest it in our businesses, either by promoting the businesses, creating maybe a more attractive gateway from the SMART train to our downtown area, I know the businesses will come up with some very creative ways of how we can help them to be a greater success. And therefore, along the road, we will get even more revenue because the money that is being generated is going to feed back into that source. And so in a way, you can look at it as an administrative fee. So I believe in this sales tax, the retail tax increase, but I also think we should invest in the businesses as well and not forget them. So thank you.
Hi, Betsy Malice, Flame Tree Circle. In October of last year, I was invited by the town executive team to a private meeting to discuss Windsor's fiscal outlook. My feedback and perspective were requested, but mostly I was presented information that ended the only solution is a 1% sales tax. Over the last 5 months, there have been more than 24 meetings, presentations, handouts, slides, videos, cartoons, graphs, pie charts, spreadsheets, social media posts, all ending with tonight, our only solution is a 1% sales tax. How did we get here? For decades, we had plenty of reserves, but in 2019, it was first publicly noted that we had a budget issue. So we kicked the can down the road, and then we got some COVID funds, and then we kicked the can further down the road. And so here we are now, with a single solution, a 1% sales tax. We've been told that all other towns that already have an additional sales tax, yet all those same other towns are also currently having budget issues. So their additional sales tax did not solve their budget issues. If we actually pass a 1% tax and do not acknowledge and deal with the root of the problem, we will be in the exact same place we are now within the next several years. Last year, a $50,000 survey, this was $50,000 paid for by the Windsor taxpayers, was done, and it concluded that a sales tax would not pass. This year, a very small, unscientific survey, 64 responded out of the 17,000 voters of Windsor, again responded, showing that a sales tax would not pass. There was a near even split for and against the tax. It showed substantial resident support, but it still showed the sales tax would not pass. It's going to cost the taxpayers an additional $55,000, which is what we heard tonight, to put this on the ballot. Look at other options, a 0.5% sales tax, a short duration tax. It took us 7 years to get into this mess. It should take us the same amount of time to get out. A business license tax, which almost every other town has some version of, not a fee. Some of them call them fees, but they were grandfathered in before this tax requirement came in. So every other town has some version of a business license tax. Really, we need to stop wasting money on this. We need to do the hard work to look at every budget item, every salary, the entire organizational chart, and reduce all non-essential expenses. Yes, that's going to be very hard work, but if you want to regain the trust of the Windsor residents, voters, and taxpayers, this is a place to start. How much more taxpayer monies are you going to waste? Take a long, hard look inward, do the work that needs to be done before asking the taxpayers for more. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm John Laba, Windsor resident, homeowner, and taxpayer. I have a counterpoint to the staff report, and I emailed you too. I personally have been in organizations with financial difficulty, layoffs and downsizing with no raises for years. When jobs were eliminated, people took demotions to stay employed. It's awful. I don't make any of my comments lightly, and I need you to know that up front. But your own scientific survey that Betsy talked about, this one, in 2025 told you a 1% sales tax won't pass. Only 38% yes after negative information. The 2022 survey for 0.5% was a lot better, about even. These two surveys have been absent in this whole community engagement process, never brought up, never shown, never posted, never discussed, nothing, zero, and we paid a lot of money for them. Rather than address issues raised, whoever's driving this thing would rather ignore real survey data and promote a 1% sales tax. The online feedback form was not scientific. My email had a lot of details in there how that could have been better. This survey from a year ago was scientific. This council tasked staff with solving problems that staff created and council approved over many years. 5 years ago, we were warned of a structural deficit. Since then, staff have come to you repeatedly to add positions. You added initiatives and programs, an analyst here, a coordinator there, a backfill for someone who is promoted. Promoting from within is a best practice for staff development. We know that. But when you backfill every time, the organization grows and now we have a crisis. Despite mention this evening or in the packet of a technical review, there's nothing technical about a 1% tax. It's just the most revenue. if you can pass it, and the data says you can't. It's the easy out for nice people. Anything else means actual job cuts. None of our friends here are going to call to eliminate one another's own job or a colleague's job. They know each other's families and children. It's too painful. That's where the council needs to look very deeply and make decisions directly. One can't always see mistakes like overhiring until after the fact. There's no need to blame anyone. We just need to change course because 1% won't pass. So the right thing to do is reduce positions, slow wage increases where possible, more sustainable in the long term. Otherwise, wage increases themselves will increase pension liabilities a couple years out. You'll be back with another budget gap. So make structural changes and ask the voters for a special tax for something they're willing to invest in. 0.5%, 3/4% sales tax to support roads and sidewalks, police, whatever. Free up general fund dollars. Contract out work where you can. Manage contracts tightly. Keep it on a short term so we see it as a temporary but not forever tax. Windsor families are struggling with inflation, increased costs all around. For some families, $20 a month is a huge amount of money, and 57% of your voters say any tax is too much. Residents are not curious about revenue measures. Many of them say, oh, hell no, when you talk to them. So consider what you'll have to do when 1% doesn't pass. Maybe do some of that now and maybe ask the voters for less. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and bring it back to the council for discussion. Who would like to start? Okay, I will. So, it's very interesting how, like, just one conversation kind of makes me or kind of think about something differently. So I went to a local store today and I asked him, are you hearing about this 1%? What do you think? And he's like, oh, it'd be horrible for me. It'd be horrible for my business. They sell high-end stuff. And so in my mind, I kept thinking, what's 1% more on a $100 item? But he's talking about $10,000 item. So that's a bit different. I'm like, oh, I didn't. So he believes that people shop at his place because it's saving them $900 instead of going somewhere else in the county. So I never thought about that. But that was interesting to me. And a long time ago, Tim, when I was out there, wasn't up here, I had asked you what it would take. And I think it was before 2019, somewhere between 2017, 2019, I had started seeing the numbers of our general fund going down. And you had given me that $900. Every I don't know, it must be every resident has to spend $900 a month in Windsor. And then I saw it the other day in one of your one of the charts you had, or so $900. Like, we all need to spend $900 on taxable items in Windsor a year. Like, do we do that? How do we push that? How do we promote that? How do we get more people to stop shopping online and shop locally? That to me is a big key, that we would bring more revenue in that way through sales tax. I wish I had the magic wand to be able to do that. And I understand, I hear everyone talking about, we need to cut, and I feel like we've been doing it. I've seen it, I've heard it, we've had no votes on certain items. And so I feel sad that other people don't think we are cutting, we are not doing what we can. So it's not a one thing. With the sales tax, no one is saying it's going to fix everything. It's a combination of so many things. And so, but after hearing everything, I kind of agree with some of the speakers and other things that I've heard throughout the meetings. I'm a little less in favor of the 1% and 0.75. I was thinking 0.5, but now I would meet in the middle and do 0.75. If it's a mental thing, seeing the 1% and voters are going to say no, I just would hate for this not to pass. I was doing all this work, and so I don't know. That's kind of where I'm at right now. So really interested in hearing from everybody else, please, and let's see what kind of direction we can give our staff tonight.
I can go. I thank John for your email. You had places that if you go on the agenda and want to see John's letter, it has some statistics that come from the state, which were helpful because I had no idea that obviously the state keeps track of us. Interesting enough, but I still couldn't really understand it. It had a list on the state of every employee that's employed in Windsor and how much they make, but no names. But I still couldn't understand it because it had employees that were making $5,000 a year with no benefits, and others making $200,000 a year with $80,000 of benefits. And so it really is difficult to know how to make cuts. And we do this and go through this every year. In 2 years, the two-year budget, we review the budget, the 2-year budget every year, and we go through it and we look at cuts. And then when we negotiate with the unions, we look at cuts also and incentives. And it becomes very difficult to make decisions because they have ramifications in terms of litigation. We're subject to litigation on a variety of decisions that we make. And that's been a problem. It's been a problem with trying to cut the budget and try to be lean and mean. It's not, I can do it at my house. I could decide not to drive to see my girlfriend twice a week. That's an easy decision and save money if I had a budget. But I like that lifestyle. And we hear people love Windsor. And that's the key for me. That's the community that we want and have. And that's where this tax measure comes in. Can we keep that love of the community, the love of the place that we live? And it's difficult. You say, well, you've spent more money and the community is suffering a little bit. The roads are not and when we talk at 2021, it's 2026, the roads are worse. The traffic is worse. Luckily, I think crime is not. I think we've spent the money there and we spent it, but that's where if we don't get a revenue source that is a tax, that's my fears where the cuts will come. Cuts will come to the Chamber of Commerce, the cuts will come to the resource officer, the cuts will come to our environmental people. I mean, they'll be across the board, our economic people, because we'll go back to basic services and we'll be able to reduce the budget to just basic services. And it won't be fun and it won't be satisfying. So if we looked at, the 1% is what we're looking at. If we looked at the 75%, there's something to be said about that in terms of when I go to the bar and buy a beer, the beer says $9. Well, when I get the bill, it's $10.18 in Santa Rosa because it's 10 and a quarter. So maybe 10% makes sense. Then when I go and buy a beer in Windsor for $9, it's $10. And I can give them the $10 and I don't have to come back with a change. So it might be something to think about. Just kind of simple. 10%, we all can know what it is. We want transparency. That may be something to think about. But again, it won't solve our problem. But we will have to do a lot of things to solve the problem. And it will require much more thought. And when it's going to require money. You know, to get a Costco in Windsor, it's not going to be free. How come Costco doesn't come here? Well, I don't know. How come they're not here? How come we don't have a hotel? Well, I don't know. How come we don't? Because we have to invest to do it. And it's not easy when we have Healdsburg to the north and Santa Rosa to the south. Those are huge sucking noises. So I'm going to support the sales tax. And I appreciate both those of you that come and told us why we shouldn't. And I appreciate those that have come and told us why we should. Thank you.
And just really quick, regarding the information from the state, my understanding, and staff can correct me if I'm wrong, is that they count like every single person, even if someone worked one day or someone was it counts
Exactly.
every
That's
single.
why it's hard to understand.
Yeah.
I mean, you see it, but it did show our spending and our revenue in a graph. It was very interesting.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Next,
so those of you out there, if you want to, I'd suggest you can find it in our agenda. You can go on the line, and Mr. Leba's letter is in correspondence, and you can pull it up, and it's good information.
Yeah. Councilmember Wall or?
Sure. So I would suggest that if we move forward on this, we move forward at the 1% rate. My personal opinion is that the number of people who are willing, the percentage is not the driving factor. I think the number of people who say, oh, I'm not going to do 1%, but I do 0.75%. It's like two people. Like the percentage is not important. So if you're going to do it, do it. So I'm going to vote to put it on the ballot. When I check my own ballot, I'll probably vote against it. But I think that for transparency's sake, it's important to let the community see, like this is, and this is what I like about the process. This is the situation we're in. These are the options you have. These are the consequences of voting this way or that way. But I think messing around with do we do 0.75%? I think that's a waste of time. Just if you're going to do it, do it. So that would be my my perspective on this. I will say to Councilmember Salmon, the reason we don't have a Costco is because we have a moratorium on gas stations. I think it is true, and it's something we're going to have to address at some point. But I'm in favor of transparency, opening up the books, letting folks see what's going on. So I do have concerns that potentially we're wasting $50,000 because the data says this is probably not going to pass. Is $50,000 worth the transparency of the community? Maybe. So I'll still vote yes to put it on the ballot. I still think it's going to fail.
Councilmember Leap?
Okay. So I'm going to come at this from a little bit different direction, and that is that I'm the oldest one in this room, I think probably. So I've done a lot of different things, and a couple of them are being involved in businesses, and I was involved in my own small businesses of clothing, women's clothing stores, as a matter of fact, and also a big startup in Silicon Valley, which became a $1.6 billion company, a software company that we ran. I supported 3,500 customers across the country. And so I'm very sensitive to people taking care of budgets. And I have been working with these people right here for the last few months and listening to them explain where we stand, where the cuts have been going on since 2022. It's not yesterday. It's they've been working on how to take care of this issue since 4 or 5 years ago. And I believe them. I believe everything they say because I've asked them dozens and dozens of questions, and they're not lying to me about the cuts that have been made, and where it will go if we don't do something about it. And so if the voters want to vote down something, they'll very, very quickly find out what is going to happen with respect to services of all different sorts. Because those cuts have already been made. You can see it in the roads. You can see it in the head counts and stuff. So that's where it comes from me and what the reports and stuff have been done. I'm very sensitive to sales tax, by the way. I was going to go to Kin Smoke for my birthday last week, and I changed my mind and went to Kin instead. And so that brought the sales tax home. I bought some suitcases at Walmart the other day instead of Costco because that brought the sales tax here instead of there. And by the way, when you buy online, all the sales tax comes back to Windsor. It doesn't go somewhere else. I think I said everything. I think I got everything. That was very, very quick. So the way I feel about it is pretty close to what Councilmember Wall says, which is that I don't think that small, well, there are a couple of views on how to present the tax. I believe that coming up to close to how the other municipalities are, 1% more and being approximately what they are, is a meaningful statement. And nickel diming at 0.5, 0.75, trying to get small fees and taxes from other divisions, I think it's not the way to do it. We are having a serious problem. We need to take care of it. Let's go try and take care of it. And if the voters decide not to take care of it, then then we'll see what happens. So I'm going to be agreeing with and recommending that we do the recommended 1%. I would add to it, I think it would sweeten the pot if we said until repealed by voters. It'll give them the option to bail in a couple years if they want. It's easy to repeal something. So that's what I'm going to recommend and where I'm going to go with it.
Vice Mayor?
All right. First, I want to say thank you to the staff for doing all of the outreach that you've done. So many meetings, so many different avenues for the public to interact with the town. So I just want to thank you for all of the hard work, and thank you for the people, the residents today who came forward and gave both their support and the reasons why they do not agree with the sales tax measure. So I just want to start on that. I would like to start with talking about the two items that were shown to be the most important for the residents, which are public safety and infrastructure. And those are very important to me as well. But we know that police officers cost a lot of money. Okay, they go out and they chase people around who have guns. They get assaulted regularly. Okay, as you know, everyone knows I'm a police officer. That's what I do on my off time from council. But officers get assaulted regularly. And that goes for our Windsor officers as well. We had a shooting. We've had 2 shootings in Windsor recently. And obviously with the public comments that we received tonight, we know that sexual assault is happening here in Windsor. Okay, it feels like a small town, but sometimes it acts like a big town when it comes to criminal activity that happens here. And we do not want to cut our public services back anymore. We do not want to cut our public safety. And also, we can't just send police officers out without giving them the resources that they need to fight the crimes. Okay, so when we ask for things like flock cameras for our police officers, we know that there's a cost associated, but there is such a significant solving rate of crimes that comes along with those types of resources that we give our public safety officers. And those come at a cost, and those come from the general fund. And so we know that. And if we want our town to continue to work towards being super safe, then we have to give those resources. Infrastructure as well. Our public works director told us this time and gave us the numbers when we worked on our budget that it was going to cost $1 million just for the deferred maintenance for Shiloh Road, for the asphalt. $1 million for one section of road. Those are the types of reasons why we have a structural deficit right now. It is not because we don't have revenue sources that do make money. We have a revenue sources that bring in about 4% each year. And we have been very fiscally responsible with our budgets. But the cost of everything has gone up. So if we're going to fix our roads, we have to acknowledge that. And those road expenditures come directly from the general fund. So they cost money, and we can continue to be structurally sound here, which we will continue to do, but we need additional revenue sources. If we were to have a big box store say today that they want to open in Windsor, they're not going to open in a year. They're not going to open in 2 years. It's going to take years before we get some revenue sources that are going to bring significant revenue to the town of Windsor. And so we had our economic development strategic plan put in place this last year, and those strategies are going to continue to take time. And so to ask for a sales tax measure is also to ask for time from our residents to understand that we're trying to build our economic development here. So we don't rely solely on tax measures. We don't want to do that, and we've never done it in the history of Windsor. This is the very first time we've come and asked for a tax measure. It is not because we're not paying attention. It is because the cost of everything has risen so significantly. Again, cuts. So we have made cuts. We made 10% cuts across all budgets. We have unfilled positions that we have frozen, and more cuts are coming. They are coming forward, and those will be presented soon. But it is incumbent upon this council as well to continue to look at ways we can have operational efficiencies, that we can combine job positions, and that we can work to make those reductions on the costs of staffing and just overall operational budgets. We are aware of that. And as you can see, if you look back at our budget hearings from last summer and in the fall, we were very strategic about the money that we spent, and we said no to so many things. We made cuts, and we made a lot of deferred maintenance decisions, which again, the deferred maintenance is going to cost us more in the future, but we made those decisions because we knew it was critical to our budget right now. Salaries, we've heard a lot of talk about salaries. Salaries are something that I want to acknowledge that yes, we have had some salary increases on our staff. And we do have salaries that are comparable to the rest of the cities in Sonoma County, because we want to have staff that wants to stay here in Windsor and also has a high education and skill levels to provide those services to our town. We don't want to employ people at a very cut rate salary, and then we have people who are not talented to provide the services, and then our services go down significantly or bring in liability to our city because we don't have the right people in the right positions. So it is important that we do maintain certain salaries. We are not paying in any way over the cost of what it should be for the town of Windsor. We look across all cities, and we specifically say within a certain price range so that we can be competitive and that we can continue to provide excellent services and maintain skilled and hardworking staff. A few things here. So I just want to say, I think it's unfortunate, Councilmember Wall, that you wouldn't support personally a tax measure for yourself, because the money that we do give forward for a tax measure goes right back into the town of Windsor's coffers to support our roads, our public safety, and all of the services that we're providing to the town of Windsor. A 1% sales tax would allow tourists, visitors, and anyone who shops in Windsor to help shore up our general fund. So I believe that that's the best type of tax to go around. I agree with you that we should relook at our moratorium on gas stations. I read an article yesterday that said electric vehicles are 26% lower this year on sales, and that those have continued to go down. And so I don't think that we should shut our doors to a Costco because we have a moratorium on gas stations. And lastly, I know I'm taking a lot of time here, but I do think we need a three-pronged approach. We're going to continue to work on our economic development. That is a priority. We put that into place already, and that is something that this council has very much prioritized. We are putting in cuts. We have already done cuts, and we are continuing to do cuts, and we will, and as a council, I hope that we can continue to put cuts on and relook at our budget again this end of this fiscal year. And then I support a 1% sales tax so that we can go forward. And I do hope that a sales tax measure in Windsor would be a short-term solution so that we can have the money to shore up what our deficits are right now while our economic plan comes into place. So that's all that I have for tonight. Thank you.
Well, thank you, everybody. And I do really want to acknowledge, I know the town manager, Davis, you already acknowledged your team, but I want to acknowledge you for all the work that you've put in also and leading this great team. And just like Councilmember Leap was saying, I feel very confident in the team that you've created, built, that they're doing the best they can in all their departments. And so I appreciate and have faith in all our departments. And thank you for everything you guys have done. So I've heard some really good stuff. So I'm ready for a motion if anyone wants to.
If I could,
Oh,
Mayor.
please.
So tonight staff's looking for direction from council. I do believe in the comments that I've heard that we have unanimous consent to move forward with continuing to educate the public and develop the language for the budget, that which we would bring back in June. Staff is asking for the direction as recommended in the recommendation to council to prepare the 1% transactions and use tax for potential placement on the ballot. I did hear that consideration from two members to continue to think about possibly a 3/4 cent.
But you have three that said, right? You have three that said 1%.
Yes, but again, what I wanted to say was we will, if council approves that or gives me that direction, we'll continue to move forward. We'll continue to develop that language as recommended in the staff report, but council then will have the chance in June to closely look at it and evaluate if the 1% at that time seems appropriate.
Good.
Just a comment, if I may. I'm not opposed to the 1%. I just wanted to raise that issue of the 3/4, and it's out there. We can change, but okay.
And yes, I appreciate that, Councilmember Salmon and Mayor Reynosa. We hear that. And so in our continued conversations, we'll weave that in and try to gauge the public as we interface with them. Okay. Do I have what we need? Thank you.
Thank you so much. And now we're moving on to item 14.2. Water is Life mural. Very exciting item.